What's up, guys? We have a new Tekken 8 patch coming tonight. This patch will be dropping at 6 p.m. Pacific time tonight, February 28th here in the States. And the servers will be down for maintenance 30 minutes before that up to midnight. So 5:30 p.m. Pacific until midnight for the maintenance period while this patch is getting uploaded for everybody. Of course, this means your replays and your ghost battle stuff is going to be changed. So if you have any replays you want to watch, go watch them or save them now because they will not work going forward. Of course, they're going to be adding the Tekken shop. If you watched the previous video, you know about the Tekken shop, how they're going to be adding costumes for your characters that you can purchase with real money and also for your avatars. So that's some new microtransactions for everybody. I'm sure you guys are all in love with that. There's also some fixes they have coming up too. One of the big things they're doing here, measures against players discovered cheating in ranked match. High-ranking players who were reported multiple times and were found to have cheated were removed from the leaderboard and their ranks were reset to beginner. Makes sense to me. I like it. Why not? Some little improvements to the fight lounge to make it a little bit easier to get into profiles and matches. And then what else is there? Let's get into the meat of this, of course. This is the patch notes. Now, I will zoom in. I'm not actually going to go through every one of these changes, and you'll see why as we go through it. But primarily, this is a bug fix patch. However, there are some significant changes that they did make throughout as well. So let's go through the changes here. Practice mode, a couple of fixes here. Nothing too crazy. Also with the story mode, move list corrections, special style. Sometimes, I guess the attacks weren't coming out when they were buffered. The wall breaks, hard wall breaks, and balcony breaks. There's some kind of issue where positional shifts occurred in specific situations. I don't even know what that's referring to. So it's obviously some minor kind of issues that were being caused that they have now addressed, right? Or are trying to address at least. Rage Art and Heat Burst, same sort of thing. Characters to become embedded in the wall during the activation of these things. But here is one of them now. So this is another common change. And these common changes are probably the biggest changes in this patch, right? So hold moves. These are all of the hold moves that they have listed here for all the different characters. In Tekken 8, hold techniques cannot be reversed when fully charged, right? Excluding techniques that dodge attacks like Azucena's Libertador. So basically, some characters, Jin and Leroy, were able to still parry these fully charged attacks. This is no longer the case. So if you have these charged attacks, that is a buff for your character against these characters that could still parry them because that was not intended. It is now removed. The Yakushima stage, it says correction has been made to address an issue where characters would become embedded in the ground during the execution of certain moves. I saw a video where this stage was shown with an uneven terrain. So at certain parts, your character would be taller or shorter. So that may be what they're fixing there. I'm not exactly 100% sure on that one, but that seems likely. Descent into subconscious. Issue where stage objects were appearing in front of the character. So these couple stages here and Elegant Palace, I guess some parts of the stage were blocking the view and they fixed that. Common behavior on side or back hit. Corrections have been made to address unintended behavior occurred where certain moves hit from side or back. I don't know what that means. But this one is very, very interesting to me because one of my biggest complaints about Tekken 8 is that the walls feel like Tekken Tag 2. It feels like, even though it's consistently like happening, like every time you reset, the same thing's going to happen consistently. It feels inconsistent as a player. When you expect something to happen, you get a different result. So it says here that the camera behavior at the wall is what they're addressing. The camera behavior instability issue that occurred when hitting with certain moves near the wall has been alleviated. This probably will not fix all those issues, but I'm hopeful that this is at least a step in the right direction. I am actually surprised that they're even addressing this, so I'm happy to see this change here because that is definitely one of the most annoying things about Tekken 8 to me at the moment. So this is an interesting change. I look forward to seeing how much that actually helps going forward. This is another big one, chain throws. So if you guys didn't know, there were certain situations where I guess if you were getting punished by the start of a chain throw, you could not break any part of the chain throw afterward. So there are certain situations that were causing that, and it looks like they're trying to address that. We'll see if it fixes all of them, but for now it seems like they tried to fix it. Wall throws and wall hit throws. issue where certain throws could still connect while the opponent was being hit against the wall, even after a wall break has been corrected. So there are certain moves that are only supposed to hit during a wall splat situation, but after the wall splat and the wall break, the character will still be standing there and you could still land it. This is like really popular with Dragunov, King similar to as well. So this has been changed now. That is definitely a bug fix as well. Stumble stun, hitting moves with like fangs down forward one on counter hit. So it's like the little butt flop that they pop back up from. Apparently, these moves were more left the opponent more vulnerable than they expected, so they've changed that. So now you'll be able to block where you couldn't before. I don't even know what was causing that before, but it's an interesting change, so that's another fix. But this one is probably the biggest change. Strong aerial spike face down. The behavior for aerial spike face down that was triggered by moves like Dragunov's Sneak 4 against airborne opponents was adjusted. And now you can be by inputting back. This was done because damage for some aerial combos was higher than anticipated when transitioning through this stage. So if you guys haven't seen this, this existed for a bunch of characters. I'm sure that if this was never addressed, that most characters would end up having combos like this. But the basic idea is you get a launcher, right? You sidestep for your tornado or after your tornado, and you get your character off axis. And then once they're off axis, you flip them over in the air, and then you spike them down in that face down position, and that leaves them in a position where they cannot get up safely, and you get extra damage grounded for free. So that was really big for characters like Victor. I know June had some. I know even Law had one, even though I wasn't using it because there's DSS issues, which we'll talk about later. But it was huge amounts of damage, and I was curious if they were going to address this, and they did. So that is a huge change. So that is fantastic. Glad to see this gone from the game because honestly, it was pretty broken. Common health recovery moves, UI animations, and dedicated sound effects have been set up for health recovery. That's fine. Then we can see here now, this is where they start getting to individual character changes. So Elisa had this up forward one change, which was similar to the Jack Spike situation. Hers was a little bit weirder, where it says the behavior of the opponent upon the second hit in midair has been altered. Hitting an airborne opponent, the behavior after the third hit, after tornado triggered, has been changed, right? And it was a really complicated scenario. All you have to know is that they fixed it. So if you're an Elisa player, that sucks to be you, but it wasn't meant to be in the game anyway. It says now, during destructive form up forward 1+2, floor break will only occur on the final hit of the move. So that's a little buff for her. Elisa back 4. Adjust the collision detection with the opponent to make it more difficult to slip under a floating opponent by extending the collision upward. This is going to be on a lot of moves. They're calling it a buff. We see this up arrow here. So this is more of a bug fix. It was obviously causing issues that weren't supposed to be there, and you'll see this throughout the majority of these changes that we're going to go through in a second now. So for the most part, there are these sort of changes, and also like this Asuka change here, while crouching down forward 3. Issue where performing certain inputs result in unintended moves has been fixed. Those are the two major types of changes that happened in this patch, right? So primarily bug fixes, not a lot of actual balance fixes, right? Or balance changes to the game. Now, let's go ahead and, we'll kind of skip through this. I'll scroll through it quickly or slowly so that you guys can actually read it because I'm not going to go through every one of these, but some of the ones that did stand out to me, I will address them as we get to them basically. Basically, they added also an icon now for the characters who have installs, like Brian Snake Eyes here. There will be an icon below the health gauge to indicate whether Snake Eyes is activated or not. This is also going to be for Claudio Starburst. It's also going to be for Leroy's Kane. So this is something they talked about during the last Tekken talk, and now we see it coming to the game basically. Claudio back forward 2. This is a small nerf where the knockback distance while blocked was too far, so now it's a little bit closer, so it's easier to punish back forward 2. Claudio is still a pain character, so it's still going to be fine. Dragunov, this is a little nerf for him. While crouching down forward 1-4, the second hit has been, the hitbox of the second hit has been reduced, so the second hit would also connect before. Now on ground it probably will not, so that's a small nerf for Dragunov as well. Fang doing sidestep, stuff would happen. Also other stuff there. Hwoarang down for 4, minor changes. You see the heat smash, small changes here for Jun and Kazuya. This is a shocking one to me. King during Jaguar Sprint can now hit back. It says the ability to transition into standing block has been added during the middle of the stopping animation. Adjustments have been made considering that, when confirming the initial movement before executing a rage art, all options on King's sides were losing. Now, this is pretty wild. Basically, and I thought this to be true, but it wasn't true actually. If King does a heat smash and he is running at you with this Jaguar Sprint, you could mash Rage Art and it would basically beat off his options, right? This is actually not true because it happened to me last night. But I think maybe if he's just doing a Jaguar Sprint by itself and you mash Rage Art, then in that kind of a situation, the frame data didn't allow him to have an option out of it. So now they've given him the option to block out of that run, which is kind of wild, especially when you consider it in comparison with his Heat Smash, right? I think I might have called it Rage Drive earlier, sorry. But his Heat Smash, which is one of the best Heat Smashes in the game for a mid-Heat Smash, right? Because it's incredibly fast, long range, goes into the Jaguar Sprint afterwards, damage is ridiculously high on it. Because it went to Jaguar Sprint, you kind of had an option with Rage Art there. It would beat like 3 out of the 4 options, but now he can block. So this is an unintended buff to King. And maybe it's not unintended because they wrote the up arrow here. So they meant to buff King, which is shocking to me. This character is super good. They also fixed the bug on his back 3, the armor. If you did back 3 and you mastered 1+2, it would have armor throughout. So they apparently have fixed that. One of his chain throws here, I guess the input was incorrect. So they corrected the throw break escape now for this burning hammer extension. Let's see what else there was here. Expanded hurt box for bear legs during hunting bear 2. So a lot of these corrections here in general for just small things like Lars down back 1, etc. So not a lot of major actual balance changes here. Let's see, was there anything else here? Leroy's cane is now on the underneath the health bar, so you can see whether the cane has been used or not. In practice mode, I guess you could do multiple cane combos, so they took that out, so you cannot do that in practice mode anymore. While you're summoning Sugar, when an attack hits Leroy, Sugar's hitbox will now disappear, which is a little sad as a Leroy main. It's another nerf for Leroy. Honestly, I was trying to hit Sugar a ton because if you guys don't know, when Leroy has heat activated, Sugar becomes a launcher, right? So when heat is activated, Sugar becomes a launcher. So I've been trying to land that a bunch, but it's so slow that it almost never comes out, and you end up getting hit anyway. But now it's even worse. So that's rough for Leroy right there. This is interesting too. This is Lily's forward 1+2. You know, earlier in the patch notes, it talked about how certain parries like Jin's and Leroy's could parry fully charged up attacks. Well, Lily has multiple charge levels on this forward 1+2, right? So it says it is now possible to defend against it with the reversal move. This correction was made because despite not being a maximum hold move, it couldn't be defended against with the reversal move. So now you can parry and reverse Lily's forward 1+2 at the second level, but not the final level. So small, tiny, minor nerf there. Nina, a little damage reduction here. This stomach lock 1 was not functioning properly as a recoverable gauge extinguisher, but now has been fixed. So apparently, she now has another way to take away your gray health, which is probably a huge buff. Nina is probably really good in this game. What else has been changed here? Reina, this 3+4. This was a pretty big buff, pretty big bug. This was kind of a semi-infinite on bears. So they fixed this, obviously. If you guys have seen this, it's the way the wall combo off the side step left into wall combo would loop over and over and over again. So this has been removed. That's basically a bug fix. While rising 1, issue where transition to a throw occurred on an airborne hit has been corrected. I think she could use this to like punish slides or something before. I'm not really sure if that's the exact same change they're talking about in this situation. But it seems like those are the major things here. Oh, and of course this. Victor's throws. The throw escape input window has been corrected to be longer. addressing the issue where it was shorter than intended. If you guys didn't know, Victor's throw breaks on these generic 1+3 and 2+4 grabs were only a 14 frame break window. So they now should be 20 frame break windows like all the other ones. So Victor players, I'm sorry. I guess all you have now is everything else. So just keep spamming your running twos and your power crushes. Yeah, sure. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Xiao Yu. Pretty much nothing changed. Minor adjustments. You know, they write them down as NERFs, but realistically, she's the same. So she's going to be pretty good still. This was actual nerfs though. Yoshimitsu's Flash. You can see here, Flash damage change from 21 to 20. Minor nerf, right? Behavior on side hits and back has been modified. Hitbox of the attack reduced, mitigating the ease with which it connects to opponents moving laterally. That's a great change. And then you see here the Flash, and I assume this is no sword stance, Mutuo no Kiwami or Heat, and during Kincho during that, same thing. Damage change from 24 to 20, bigger reduction. Same thing about side hits and back hits modified. Health recovery on hit changed from 4 to 2. And health recovery for recoverable health on hit changed from 10 to 5. So basically, less amounts of healing, right? Heat time remaining, time consumption changed to -300. Not sure what that was before, but if you guys haven't seen this, Yoshimitsu could heal a bunch back during his combos, right? So this change with that Flash is going to remove that because it was pretty ridiculous. You were seeing optimization of these combos where people would get back a bunch of health by getting like 3 or 4 flashes per combo. So it says changes have been made, considering that it was possible to achieve more hits than intended in aerial combos, resulting in exceptionally high combo damage and health recovery effects. Yoshimitsu forward 2 during hit from the front 2. Recovery frames extended by 4 frames. Transition time for the opponent to enter down state has been accelerated by 5 frames. This change has been made as an unintended follow-up attacks were connecting. So that's basically it. A lot of bug fixes. This is probably one of the bigger actual balance nerf changes that in the entire game, right? The Yoshimitsu Flash change. But it may have been an oversight kind of a bug fix, right? Because obviously they were like, oh, we didn't know you're going to do 4 flashes in a combo and get back so much health. But other than that, the Victor throws was also a major change. Getting rid of Reina's semi-infinite, which is super hard to do actually. That's gone as well. They have a couple of other minor changes to a lot of these characters. But overall, not a ton of actual balance changes, right? But one thing I do want to bring up here, let me find one of these examples where they describe it correctly here. Like, for example, Fang back-facing opponent 4. The issue where performing certain inputs resulted in unintended moves has been fixed. Throughout this document, they have this come up a few times. The issue where performing certain inputs resulted in unintended moves has been fixed. Law has this same issue with this DSS, right? If you do DSS with forward 3+4, you want the jumping kick that hits grounded, you will actually get the legend kick. If you do it too fast, you'll get the blue spark legend kick, right? I've tried hitting both buttons together. I've tried button buffering, one button before the other. You will either get the dragon cannon with blue sparks, is forward 4-3, or you'll get the DSS forward 4 legend kick with blue sparks, right? So you're going to get one of those two if you do the DSS perfectly. So that is a major issue. I will probably have to make a separate video of that to explain it. But that is something I would like to see fixed going forward as well. But overall, I think that this is a pretty solid patch. And, you know, I have to also say, these patch notes have been awesome, right? Like this King Jaguar sprint change, you know, I think it's kind of a ridiculous change, right? But the fact that they gave us the sentence that says, adjustments have been made considering that when confirming the initial movement before executing a rage art, all options on King's sides were losing. I like that they gave us that kind of justification, right? They gave us the same kind of justification here for Yoshimitsu, talking about why they changed his flash and the heat recovery on it. You know, the changes have been made considering it's possible to achieve more hits than intended in aerial combos, resulting in exceptionally high combo damage and health recovery effects. That makes sense to me. You know, keep up the good work here, Namco. You guys are killing it on that front. But that's basically it. You know, Victor throws, King Jaguar sprint, minor Dragunov buff, or nerf, sorry. And that's more or less it. I'm really more curious though about these common changes they had. Strong aerial spike face down. This one's a big one, right? Because they say you can now get up off the ground by inputting back. I don't know if that means they changed the back roll to be safer from that situation or what, but it means that they touched the wake up system a little bit, right? And sometimes that might have unintended consequences. It could just be that everything is safer now, or it could be that something else is broken. We won't know until we get to play with it, right? But it seems like this is a good change in general. This needed to go anyway, the strong aerial spike, so I'm glad they did it. And I'm very, very curious about this camera behavior at the wall because I feel like that part makes the game feel way more jank than it should at times. Chain throws being unbreakable, now being fixed is fantastic. And yeah, that's basically it. You know, the hold moves being unparryable or supposed to be unparryable were parryable. Now they're unparryable. I don't like that change overall in Tekken 8, but that's Tekken 8. It's the game that we're playing, right? So you have to accept it for what it is. And that's that. That is it. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. But I'm Rip. Patch is coming out tonight. Go check your replays and all before they're gone. I'll see you guys later. Have a good one. Peace. And you guys subscribed, right? Right? Right?